From Boca Raton, Florida, this is Behind the Bima. On this week's episode, Rabbi Goldberg and co-host Rabbi Philip Moskowitz and Rabbi Josh Brody are joined by Rabbi Uri Pilichowski, educator, columnist, and author of Zionism Today. Rabbi Pilichowski talks about what Zionism really means, explains how he tries to defend Israel, and shares his perspective on how to educate the next generation about Israel. Also, discussions on trips to Israel and how Israel has changed since October 7th. All this and more, Behind the Bima.
Welcome to the newest episode of Behind the Bima. As always, incredibly honored, more honored than ever, to be joined by my dear friends and colleagues, Rabbi Moskowitz and Rabbi Brody. We have a great guest tonight, Rabbi Pilichowski, who used to live here and has been doing amazing things in Israel for many years, and passionate, enthusiastic, and persuasive. Really great conversation about Israel today and so many different facets of it. Rabbi Brody, you just got back from yet another mission. That was trip number
3.
Number 3 since October 7th. Rabbi Moskowitz and I are going the end of January on our trip number 3. And we want to keep going, and we want to keep organizing and arranging and helping others to go. Any highlights from this most recent trip you want to share with us?
Sure. And I think it's actually incredible because almost every week since October 7th, there's been another group coming from our community, whether it's through the schools or from the members of our shul. It's really special. But the story keeps evolving. And I think every time we bring another group, it's always the same concern. People on the trip and also people that are watching the trips are saying, why are you guys going? What are you doing? What do you think it's going to add? And you heard this past Shabbos where Jim got up and he said that he heard from one of the great generals and one of the army bases we were visiting. And I know you probably say it better than me, but they said that we're at a very low point. And your visit actually means so much.
Now, let me ask you a question, because you've now been on the third time. You've been to many of the places 3 times. So you've seen it closer to October 7th. You've seen it in the middle, and now you've seen it most recently. Can you give us an example of one of those places and how that experience has evolved? Like how you
It's
experienced.
changed. I'll give you a few examples. And every place we visit, we give it an introduction. Just be prepared. We're not here to scare you. We're not here to shock you. And we give an introduction. This is what you can expect to experience. This is what you can expect to see. Although seeing it and touching it and feeling it, it's going to be very different than anything you can anticipate. And for example, you go to the car parking lot where there's going to be 2 parking lots, 2,000 cars, and we say, oh, guess what? They're because of the blood-stained chairs and seats in the cars, they're going to crush them and they're going to bury them. But that seems to not be the story right now. Now they're not going to bury them. They keep going through them. They have these giant vacuum cleaners that they're taking out, unfortunately, body parts, which are going to be buried. But at that point, they're not going to bury them. And we walk into the hotels. Oh, be prepared. You're going to see all of these people living there and their kids running around. And there's kids in the different offices and in the gym having classes. But in the Plaza Hotel, now you walk in and you see kids wearing backpacks on their way to the local schools. So it's a different story. It's still very jarring. You've never gone to a hotel in your life and seen children walking out of a hotel with their parents going to school. That's already an experience, but it's a different story. It keeps changing.
And does it get old for you? Meaning you're somebody who went to Poland and watched the living countless times.
Yeah.
So does it lose its impact, its effect?
No, I think the way we introduced this trip was, maybe this was as a result of the first 2 trips, is try. It's not easy. You want to take photos and you want to take a video and but try be in the moment, because there's so much to experience. And I think when you anticipate what you're going to see because you've been there before, it actually gets a little bit more intense because of the experience. Yeah, it doesn't get less.
Right. Yeah. So it's like the song or the thing that you've watched that you watch again or you listen to again, because you know where it's going. You're like pumped up or experiencing it differently.
And also on some of the, I space out a little bit on some of the other trips. It's very hard to take it all in at once. And I remember there were 1 or 2 places in Be'eri where we were together, where I remember just saying, I missed that story. I just did. I saw everyone's reaction and I just didn't get it. So I knew to go and pay a little bit more attention this time.
Yeah, I found that even in our trip, I'm still processing. In other words, it took me days after we got home to fully revisit all those images and all the stories and all the speeches and all the people that we met. It's so hard on these condensed, really short trips to grab it all in. And what you're really kind of doing is you're taking snapshots with your head, and then on the plane home, and then when you get home to your family and they ask you about the stories and we have to speak about in shul, you kind of relive those experiences and you process it in your head a little bit. So I find even to this day, I go back to those stories and I'm still trying to understand them, internalize them, and emotionally connect with them.
Sure. You know, what you said is really important in quoting Jim, and even that comment, Rabbi Moskowitz. There are several people who have reached out to me who have opportunities to go to Israel, whether it's for Yeshiva Week or on a mission, and they're like, it's a war zone. Can I really get around? Does it really make a difference? Will it really matter? Am I really contributing anything? Is it just a photo op for me? Is it just a feel good for me? Right? Should I bother? And we can't reiterate strongly enough. And once you go there, you'll smile and you say, I heard them on the beam behind the Bima say this, and they were 100% right. The greeting, the warmth, the welcome, the difference, the impact, not to give ourselves credit or pat ourselves on the back whatsoever. We are nothing, but we are something. And it means something. It means something with the people who need it the most. Just like it means something when you show up to go home, to go visit, to call a loved one, and you just show up. But they didn't take away the problem or the challenge or reverse it or undo it. But you showed up. And that means something. It means something to big, brute, strong Rambo soldiers. It means something to them that you watch them melt when they read a card from a kid. And it means something to people in the Yeshuvim with kibbutzim that were decimated. And we say that not to celebrate ourselves, but to encourage and motivate those who have hesitations. If you have the capacity, if you have the time, and you have the ability, don't wait. Don't wait. You will never regret it. Not for 1 second. You will always look back. You will tell your children and grandchildren. It will wake something up inside you, and you will not regret it. So if you could do it Yeshiva Week, maybe you could join us for the 2 days that we're planning there for BRS community, and if we're able to beyond. But you will not regret it for 1 second.
And I had a whole conversation with a friend on Friday. They have other plans for Yeshiva break that they made long before October 7th, and they are really struggling with whether to go through with those original plans or to switch it and come to Israel at a significant financial cost for them. And one of the factors is exactly what you just said. He said, how could I look my children in the face and lose out on this educational opportunity for them, to lose out to talk to them about what it means to be part of the Jewish people in a time of war, how you do things differently, how you curtail some of your normal fun activities because the Jewish people are going through suffering. And he said, I don't have an itinerary, I don't have a plan, I don't have a place to stay. He said, but I'm going to go. And even though it's going to cost me a lot of money, I'm going to do it because I want my kids to know that that's where my values are. It's not on a cruise. It's not in Panama. It's not in Greece. And again, there are valid reasons to go to all that. I'm not making judgment. I'm saying for this guy, he felt it was such a missed educational opportunity to talk to his children about that value of showing up when it's important.
Yeah, and not everybody can. We recognize, we respect. There are people listening who wish they could take the time off work or arrange or be able to afford. Not simple at all, but if you can, and you won't regret it for 1 second. Gentlemen, great to be back together again, and to be able to have this conversation with our friend Rabbi Uri. Really very interesting angles, perspectives, refreshing approach on a lot of things that others feel strongly about, might reopen how they think about things. So we hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we did. It's great to be reunited with our dear friend, Rabbi Uri Pilichowski. Dear friend, colleague, lived and worked in Boca and with us at Boca Raton Synagogue for several years and has remained. Our friendship has only grown, but also being a colleague and partnering and working together on the things that we care so deeply about. So Rabbi Pilichowski, thank you for making the time and going with us behind the Bima.
Thank you for having me. So I've been waiting years to be this famous, and that's like a dream come true.
You are the second Pilichowski. First, we had the mayor, the more chashuv mayor, and we're going in order of importance. So it's good to have you now, Rabbi Pilichowski. You've just come out with a new book, Zionism Today, incredibly important book, a beautiful book. You have tremendous haskamas, the endorsements and testimonials from a range of people speak to your relationships and speak to the significance of the book. But why? Why put out a new book about Zionism? As if that bookcase is not full enough. There aren't enough books, scholarly, historical, biographical. What is your book introduced to this landscape of the conversation on Zionism that was missing beforehand?
Can you name 5 books on Zionism?
Yeah, Danny Gordis's book is excellent. I mean, do you want to talk about Begin? You want to talk about some of the?
Those are all on the history. Those are all on the history of Israel. I said on Zionism.
Okay, Satmar Rebbe wrote a book against Zionism. We could talk about his book.
So my book's a little different, right? So I take a different approach. So the truth is, and I'm not just being facetious here, but there are very few books on actual Zionism that's not really about Israel. So I thought that it's important that we actually study Zionism. I work for Nefesh B'Nefesh, and Rabbi Fast challenged me 2 years ago to start bringing Zionism to the forefront of discussions among people, being that's the foundation of the state of Israel. And truth be told, I kind of bluffed my way through the interview. I didn't really know so much about Zionism. I knew a lot about Israel, but not so much about Zionism. And I spent like the last couple of years really studying Zionism. And I find it a fascinating human experiment. So this is like really the conclusion of a lot of the topics that I studied over the last couple of years. And I thought that it's important that we think about these topics. A lot of times we're always on defense about Israel, or we're always trying to get our opinions out there about Israel. But let's take a step back and examine what this whole philosophy is all about. That's what the book is, and it challenges you to think. That's the goal of the book, not telling you what to think, but giving you things to think about.
So it's adding something that didn't exist before. It's not just the history of the modern state of Israel. It's a philosophy and idea, and it's a philosophy and an ideology about Zionism.
Right.
Now,
No history.
it's interesting that Rabbi Fast challenged you to write it as part of Nefesh B'Nefesh. Rabbi Fast,
No.
to speak about Zionism. I got it.
Right. To teach about Zionism, the book is very much not connected to Nefesh. He's
Got
very
it.
big on it.
Got
Can you clarify one thing for our listeners? You said
What?
you know a lot about Israel, but you didn't know a lot about Zionism. Can you clarify that statement? What exactly does that mean? What are some things that you learned along the way?
Yeah. So thanks. So for Zionism is a philosophy and a movement, right? It's both. Yeah. And the state of Israel is something that exists. It was the achievement of all of those thinkers, but it came out very different. There was never a definition given to Zionism. They never got up at one of the Zionist conferences and said, "Hey, this is what we're talking about." They just everybody kind of assumed they knew. And if you think about it for a second, right, is Zionism a religious or a secular movement? Is it capitalist? Is it socialist? Right? There's no definition of Zionism. It is a very, very open door type of thing where everybody can walk through and find their place in this. But the one overriding feature was that we are a people. We have rights as a people. And we have a land that's ours, and we need to go back to that land. And we should rule that land. That should be our land. That's the one thing that everybody agreed to within the Zionist camp. And then you had a lot of different debates because we never really coalesced around one definition. And then after 50 years of activism, we achieved our goal, which was amazing. And then we had a state, and what a bracha. Right, that we have this state, and now what do we do with this state? Right, so now taking the Zionist ideals, and now what do we do with it? So those are some of the things that I didn't know there wasn't a definition of Zionism. I figured that was the first thing I started looking up. What's the definition of Zionism? And then you can't find one because there is no. You'll look at Wikipedia, it'll give you a definition because it has to. But there's nobody that says this is the definition of Zionism.
And your definition, your book reflects a religious Zionism. What would a secular Zionist say about your book?
My book is not. Einat Wolf is one of the people that wrote. It's a friend of mine. She's an atheist, former Knesset member, very, very a big opponent of religious Zionism. Has a lot of problems with it, and yet we get along. And so it's just if you read into her, like the way that she praises the book, she says religious Zionist because I'm religious and I'm a Zionist. So I come from a certain perspective, but there's 101 chapters in the book, and many of them are not have anything to do with religion at all, and a lot of Zionism doesn't have to do with religion, right?
We joked before about Satmar. Was the Satmar Rebbe a Zionist? Of course he was, because he davened every day. He said Zion halo tishali v'sechazeni b'shivcha Tzion b'Yerushalayim. If you take the word Zion and Zion, he too longed for a return to our homeland. He just had a different path how to get there. The Chazon Ish was a Zionist. Chazon Ish said everybody should vote. It's a mitzvah. He said like maror or eating maror, but it's a mitzvah. So was the Chazon Ish a Zionist? So to a certain degree, every Jew, no matter what their orientation, is a Zionist. The question is how that expresses the manifest.
Well, I was going to formulate that a little bit different, which is that in America, the word Zionism is a complicated word, for better or worse. There are many segments of the Orthodox community, some of whom live in our community, many of whom live up in New York, who the word Zionism they don't relate to, but they very much relate to Israel. So what would you say to that? Eretz Yisrael. So what would you...
There's a great divide between Eretz Yisrael and Medina Yisrael, right? That's one divide. There's a divide. There are very few people that are especially Torah Jews. You quote Satmar, excuse me, I would even say the Torah Karta, right, which is an even more extreme example of people that dress, and observe, dress as if they observe the Torah, and act as if they observe the Torah. I don't know what anybody actually does. So, but let's assume they do observe the other parts of the Torah, right? And so you look at them, and their objection is it's a matter of timing, right? They live in Eretz Yisrael, these people, right? They live in Yerushalayim, right? The Karta, right? The Torah Karta, it means the guardians of the capital, right? So they just feel that the state shouldn't be today, right? So they don't disagree with any of the tenets of Zionism. They just disagree with the timing of the movement.
So they would say that they're Zionists?
No,
By
I don't
your
think so,
definition?
because Zionism has this connotation. I think that's Rabbi Goldberg's whole point, right? That what's a Zionist? So Rabbi Goldberg's saying let's expand the tent as far as we could possibly expand it, and say anybody that loves Eretz Yisrael is a Zionist today, right? And so that.
Well, let me rephrase it. Let me pose a little bit different to you. Is the more Haredi or Haredi light family, but who moves their family, who's more of a Zionist? The one who lives in Boca Raton, does Doug Lanut, eats blue and white cookies, sits under their palm tree, raising money for barbecuing for soldiers, goes every year for Sukkot, wears a kippah sruga, says Hallow with a bracha on Yom Ha'atzmaut, or the one who moves to Israel, who children who move to Israel, and maybe they haven't fully, they vote in the election, they pay taxes in Israel, maybe their children don't go to the army, which is we can talk more about the complicated part about that. So meaning the one who moved to Israel, pays taxes in Israel, contributes to the economy in Israel. It's been told to me by Chilonim, it's misrepresented even the Haredi contribution to the economy of Israel just by their population numbers. So they're contributing to the population. Who's really the more of the Tzioni? The kippah sruga, wearing Israel flag, waving, Hallow with a bracha, reciting Jew in Teaneck, the 5 towns, or Boca Raton? Or I'm not expressing an opinion. I'm just saying that it's so complicated, this question of that word Zionist and who meets our criteria of it.
Right, so we don't have, why do we have to have criteria of who's a Zionist? Okay. Who cares? Right, so okay, guys, you're in Boca Raton and doing all the things you said. So okay, we love you. You're a Zionist, great, and you're in Israel and you don't you do all the things that you just said. Okay, we love you also. Right, you're a Zionist. Everybody's a Zionist. Who cares? Why do we have to you are like that's the whole point. Let everybody in. You're all Zionists. You all love Israel. We all love you. You're all Jews. Right? Everybody's great. And if you're a non-Jewish Zionist, we love you too. Right? So it's a big love fest. Who cares? Why do you have to sort say this guy is, this guy isn't?
Rabbi Moskowitz just got scared of the dog, even though it's 6,000.
No, I was trying to figure out, is that
6,000 miles away?
It's here. Let me ask you a question also. We had a guest on a few months ago where we said, what does it feel like to be an Israeli? And the guy shot back and says, I'm not an Israeli, I'm a Jew. This guy living in Israel. What does that mean?
I mean, Israeli is a fact. Like you belong. Like the way the world works today is you live in a country, you're a citizen of that country. Like these are just facts. If a guy sits there and says, I have Israeli citizenship, but I'm not Israeli, so I say, no, you are. Now you could disagree with many of the policies of the state of Israel and say, I really don't want to be associated with the state of Israel, but then you should move and give up your citizenship if you really don't want to be Israeli. Otherwise, like it's just a fact. Like
so what are people so afraid of? Why are people?
I don't know. I don't know this man, so I don't know what he's afraid of.
Well, can I phrase it to you differently, and I'll tell you how we got here? Because let's go full circle to Rabbi Fass is also a dear friend of ours, colleague of ours. We're so grateful. Boca Raton Synagogue and Nefesh B'Nefesh. He's a major part of Jewish history, of the newer books of Tanakh that are being written. So we have only the greatest admiration for Rabbi Fass. Incredible. But I wonder, and I'm asking out loud. I don't have an opinion. I want to hear yours. Whether focusing, emphasizing, and speaking about Zionism is actually the winning strategy to getting more aliyah, or can become the impediment. Because I think there's an enormous group of people who feel connected more than ever, especially since October 7th, to the fate and destiny of the Jewish people in Israel, to Eretz Yisrael, to the soldiers, and like Rabbi Moskowitz said, that word Zionism, just, for some people, yes, pride, Zionist, absolutely. For others, it's like, no, don't, careful, don't get me dirty with that label. So I just wonder whether couching it in that term will actually help and increase Nefesh B'Nefesh's incredible work of Aliyah, or could for some even be an impediment where let's not talk about that. Let's just talk about you're moving here, you're making Aliyah, you're becoming a citizen, you're voting, you're paying taxes, you're adding to the economy and where you live. And what your ideology is, that's not relevant to trying to get you from Chutz La'aretz to the Aretz.
So I think that, like, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Rabbi Fast, for sure not, and definitely not on behalf of Nefesh B'Nefesh, because that's just not my job. Right. So, but I can just say, like, I've never met anybody that said I'm not going to move to Israel because there's this thing called Zionism. Zionism exists. Like, there's a reality to the world. We're past this argument, right? This argument happened decades ago. And there's a state of Israel and it exists, and there's a movement called Zionism and it exists. And you can associate with it. You don't associate with it. You can live in Eretz Yisrael and be a productive member of society. And I think if anybody studied Zionism, they would find their corner of it that they like, and they don't have to accept it all. I definitely don't, right? I'm not a Haram guy, so, and there are a lot of things that Herzl wrote that I'm still shocked by. And but there's a lot of things that Zionists wrote that I do agree with, and I do find favor with. So I think that moving to Eretz Yisrael and making Aliyah, which is Nefesh's mission, is to increase Aliyah and to celebrate Aliyah and to facilitate Aliyah especially. So that's just Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael, and Medina Yisrael is Medina Yisrael. It has good stuff, it has bad stuff, and come here and make it better if you have problems. It's a democracy. Everybody gets a say.
So what's the winning argument? If you could talk to 3 rabbis who speak to American Jews regularly and say, here's the message that if you'd only share this, people would come on Aliyah, right? Because we get that regularly from people. We speak about it. We're not afraid. We talk Aliyah all the time. We encourage it. We push it. We celebrate those who've made it. We talk about our own struggle with it and the question of not if, but when. So we're all ears. So if you had the script, if the American rabbinate got together and Rabbi Pilichowski could deliver them the script and say, if only you'd get up, this would be the winning argument. Here's how you could awaken and arouse and inspire more Jews to right now come to Israel. What would that script include?
So I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. I don't have like these winning, formulas. If somebody had this, then everybody would be here already. That's just not how it works. I think that I don't have an answer to that question. I think for me, I can tell you why when I moved from Boca Raton, which is a wonderful community and supported, by the way, not just of Aliyah, but I have tremendous gratitude for the support that you gave me, my family, to our town since Simchas Torah. Right, that all the things that the Boca Raton community is beautiful. But when I decided to leave it and come to Eretz Yisrael, so I don't know if you remember, but it was during Tzok Eitan, it was in 2014, and we had reporters, as the Moskowitz was moving into our community, we were moving out, we had reporters doing interviews with us, and one of the reporters said, you're moving into a war zone. It was a war zone. My first night in Eretz Yisrael, we got rocket attacks. We moved in. We were the only Nefesh B'Nefesh flight that didn't have a party. We had to get out of the airport as fast as possible. And one reporter from Florida asked me, like, live on television, so why are you moving in war? And I just had one word answer. It's home. That's what spoke to me. This is our home. And you can decide that you're not going to live at home. Many people don't live at home.
Right.
If you decide to make your house somewhere else. But this land is our home. This is the Jewish people's home. This is where you always feel at home. And sometimes home is difficult. Sometimes home has challenges, but you're always going to be home here. That's what spoke to me. That's why I always wanted to come back to Eretz Yisrael, because Eretz Yisrael was home for me. And that's the way I feel every day that I'm here. I wake up every day. It's a dream to be at home. And
what number? Living the dream number?
I never know it by heart. I always got to look it up on Google. Like how many days since July 24th? Yeah, but it's over 3,000 days, and it's so special to be here, and such an opportunity to be here. And by the way, I'm gonna be the first guy to say it's not for everybody. It's definitely not for everybody, but it's something that everybody should strive for. Everybody should have some sort of a plan. When one day I'll get there. That's where I want to be. And I think that's the message. And again, I don't know if it's the winning message. I don't think that there's ever going to be a message you get up in front of American Jewry and here's your formula, and everybody says, "Whoa, yeah, I never thought of it that way. Let's get on the next flight." But I think that the idea that this is home. This is really home.
Can I pivot the conversation a little bit? First of all, that was beautiful.
Sorry.
And it just means that we're going to have a tough conversation in my house tonight, but I appreciate that. Just to pivot a little bit, I remember when you made Aliyah and I asked you what you're going to do in Israel. You did so much advocacy here, so much APAC activism. And you said, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out a way to use my voice in Israel. And you certainly have. Anyone who follows you on social media knows that the Pilichowski Palace is a stop for groups, trips, federations, APAC missions of people to come and to learn about what life is like, what we'll call over the green line in Yehuda V'Shomron. And you host an enormous amount of groups. In all those groups that you host, what do you think is the number one misnomer that American Jewry has about people like you? And I use like you as purpose. And as you call yourself a settler, right? You
Right.
post, yes, I'm a settler. I'm the settler that everyone talks
He's a
about.
rational settler. He's
Irrational
rational.
settler. What is the
Proud
number one
settler.
misnomer that American Jews who visit the Pilichowski Palace have about you, your lifestyle, and the choices that you made?
And the number one, I mean, it's they think it's a war zone, right? They think they're going to come here and there'll be violence. They're amazed to find out that in 44 years of our town, we've never had a terror attack. We've never had rockets, you know. So we had a yeshiva that came over as a yeshiva from Yerushalayim. There's about 100 guys came over Friday night for an oneg, and the parents were nervous when they found out that they'd be going to Mitzvah Yericha, where I live. And so the Menahel, the principal of the yeshiva, wrote to me and said, "What should I tell these parents?" I tell me we haven't had a siren in 10 years, you know, and that was a mistake, yeah, so like when people come here and it's quiet all the time, like it's just silent here, absolutely silent, and like,
I know you don't. I know you don't believe it, but I'm going to say Bli Ayin Hara. Okay, continue.
Okay, so yeah, I don't know how that would fit, but yeah, so we and thank God, look, you know, Kadosh Baruch Hu has blessed this town, like it was just Shomer Yisrael, and we're grateful that we have that peace of mind. So people come and they expect to see like armed guards, and we don't have a fence around our town. We Boca, place. There are neighborhoods in Boca that look more like a war zone than here in Mitzvah, and maybe not today because of the war, but like it's like safe here. We don't have these issues, so I think that's the biggest mistake people make, and the biggest misconception that they have, that they're coming into a war zone. They come to like a very nice suburban community in the desert, and they're shocked by that.
How important was it that you moved to Mitzpeh? Like, was a place that was not over the green line, so to speak, Yehuda V'Shomron? Was that an option, or you said we're going, we got to be in that part?
We moved here not for ideology's sake. We moved here for financial reasons. I didn't want to share walls. I don't like living in an apartment. That's my own craziness. And so I wanted a nice size house, and they're very expensive in Israel, nice size homes. And they're expensive anywhere, so I wanted that, and I wanted to be close to Yerushalayim. So try to find that somewhere. You're not going to find that anywhere else, but and even now it's
you can't find it in Mitzvah.
Right? Yeah, my home has over doubled in value since I bought it 9 years ago. Yeah, so I don't think I could afford it today, but then I could, thank God, and then I did. So that's why I moved here. But not the ideology came much after. Then I started looking into it and saying, when I came here, I was like a big two-state guy. I was like, we're gonna make peace. I'm gonna be friends with all the guys in Yericho, and we're gonna change things. That was my big misconception. But
wow.
Yeah.
Talk to us, Rabbi Pilichowski. You are not currently wearing a uniform and fighting in the IDF, but you are fighting for Israel online and offline daily, educating students in America, advocating, getting access to the highest, most powerful people who influence policy. And you're fighting the good fight on social media. Anyone who follows you, and you should mention your social media handle so people can follow you and see the intelligent, informed conversation and support you in the fights that you're fighting, including with a regular spat I see that you have back and forth with a former U.S. ambassador and other ongoing conversations. Talk to us a little bit about that. What before the war and now during the war, what are you focused most on in correcting the record? Is it about Israel's right to defend itself? Are you fighting for what comes next? I know yesterday the U.S. Had some strong opinions about Ben Gvir and Smotrich, who talked about relocating the Palestinians from Gaza, and the U.S. felt strongly about it. Then there's now news that actually Israel's talking with the Congo and trying to actually find a home for them. So is that where you're advocating? What do you view as your mission? Is it just always setting the record straight on Israel? Is there what unit are you in the Israel fight?
I've been rejected by the IDF 3 times, and I think that I would love, I always tell people, I don't know why, but I always try to tell people, Yeah, that's the real. Those are the real warriors. The guys with the typewriters. We're not warriors. We're not fighting any fights. Like, this is a joke. We're on Twitter. So as much as like we like to say like, oh yeah, you're a warrior. I want to get rid of that notion. The difference between me and a soldier is night and day, and light years apart from each other. But I try to. I'm an educator. I'm not an advocate online. I'm an educator. I try when I see mistakes to point them out to people, especially with Ambassador Indyk, who unfortunately with all his scholarship makes a lot of mistakes. So I try to point out like the error when he makes them. But I like to.
I just interrupt you for 1 second. Have you ever connected with him offline? Meaning, is there a relationship outside of the Twitter chats that take place?
No, and it's not that we're not into like that often. Like we use each other. He uses me as like the crazy settler, and I use him as the the ambassador, that guy that gets it wrong. There's so many American ambassadors that get it right. That I'm very close with. Ambassador Nines and Ambassador Friedman and Ambassador Shapiro. These are all wonderful men who did great work. And Stephanie Hallett, who's now the acting ambassador until Ambassador Lou gets back from his vacation. So these are all incredible people, and they do great work. But I see myself as an educator, and I'm trying to get across the facts. The most important thing is that the Jewish people have a right to this land and the right to govern this land. That's very important to me, and that's from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's from international law, that's from history, that's morality. We've got it all behind us. I have a class that I give at Nefesh that I think is one of the most powerful classes, where it's not only that I show that we have a stronger argument than any opponent to this land. The Jewish people have a stronger argument to the land of Israel than any other nation in the world has to their own land. We have the strongest, and it's it's so important to recognize that we're one of the oldest people of this earth, and nobody has the arguments and the claims to their land that we have. This is our land, and nobody's taking this from us. So that's my main message. That this is that's what I try to educate about. And when people get that wrong, I like to point that out, and and I like to reinforce that message as much as I can.
We were very lucky last week. We had a class with Rabbi Pilichowski at Nefesh B'Nefesh. We didn't know what the class was going to be on. And then when he presented it with the following question, he said, does a country need borders? And then what's the history of Israel's borders? We spent 2 hours discussing it, and he brought all the maps, thousands of years ago to the current day. And it was very clear that we had no clue. We had no clue on understanding this and no perspective. And even now, we all printed out the slides that you gave us. And the joke was that we're going to get a test from you afterwards, but we're not prepared. We just don't even know. And that was, and we're educated on Israel. We feel like we know Israel, and yet we still don't even understand the classic borders. Where are the schools making the mistake? How come we all went through Jewish day schools? We all learned about it, but we don't seem to know the basics.
Listen, I don't think schools are making a mistake. I think schools have a lot of. I teach in American schools. So like I'm the guy making the mistake then also. But I don't think
you didn't teach us in JEC.
Right. Okay. So Goldberg and I were at Frisch together. We got a wonderful education. Sorry, Moskowitz and Maimonides, I'm sure, got a wonderful education as well. And I think the schools are doing a great job. I just think there's a limited amount of hours in the day to go through things. So if the schools would spend the entire day on Israel, then yes, every kid would know everything about Israel, but they wouldn't know anything about Torah. They wouldn't know any mathematics. They wouldn't know halacha. So we've got to economize our time as much as possible. I think all schools are doing a wonderful job. I don't think we should criticize schools at all. I think that people have to study on their own. People have to learn on their own. And that requires a lot of reading and a lot of efforts, not podcasts, not videos, not radio shows, not movies. It means you have to read. All those things are great, and we all do them, and they're wonderful also. They're additional, but if you don't read, you got to. I realize that book's in there. I'm telling you, I got a picture of my book. But I've always made a pitch for reading. I've got an Israel reading list that it's very important. These are books you have to read.
You could read a lot and still not feel the confidence that when you get in a discussion in a college campus, when you're sitting in a class at Columbia or NYU or Binghamton or Maryland, and someone raises an issue. I could have read a million books on Israel, but there's a different skill set that says I now have the confidence to be able to get up and to rebut something that someone just said. So again, I keep coming back to something Rabbi Goldberg said after his first trip to Israel, where he got up in shul and he said, my conclusion is that Jews in Israel will be fine. It's the Jews in America that I worry about. And we hear from dozens of students on college campuses, many of whom we're extremely proud of. They've written op-eds, they've written very publicly in their college newspapers advocating for Israel. And then we also hear from students who feel threatened, who feel that a professor said something or a student said something in class, and they didn't feel either equipped or confident enough to stand up against them. So you can read a lot, but how do you develop that skill set that says, when I'm sitting in the class in Maryland, I'm comfortable fighting back and I'm comfortable addressing my opinion with confidence?
I tell my students, maybe you have a different way of approaching this, which is fine. I tell my students, you're not Israel's defense attorney. Like, you don't have to defend against this is a college professor. Like, this is somebody who's a professional scholar. Like, we expect our 18-year-olds, how much training are we going to give our 18, 19, 20-year-olds? They can stand up against a college professor. The guy's a college professor. Plus he has the standing. He or she has been given the podium in front of 700 students. And we are disappointed when our students walk out of the room. Like, how come I couldn't stand up to that college professor who's been teaching for 40 years and speaks with confidence and mocks me when I stand up for Israel? Of course, our 20-year-olds don't have a chance against them, right? So, and why would we tell our 20-year-olds to do that? Dam al hashiv, the Mishnah says, right? Know what to answer. It doesn't say go out and answer every single heretic that you see, right? So I think that's it's a skill set, 100%. But we don't have to send every single Jew, every single Zionist is not Israel's defense attorney. There should be a point where we say, I have the confidence to know that I have my beliefs. I know what I know. And that's enough for me. And if this person wants to stand up and say irrational things about Israel and about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and about Zionism, I don't have to listen to them. And I don't have to convince them that they're wrong. And I don't have to convince the whole world. We have a state for 75 years. We are thriving. Who would have ever thought that we would have a state and it would be this good? It's amazing, our state. Look what we've built. It's incredible. It's not being taken away. The United Nations doesn't have a vehicle to take away Israel. You can't have a vote and say, now that it's here. That's it. It's not going anywhere. And as long as Kadosh Baruch Hu keeps blessing us with success, we're going to keep going. That's all that matters. So all we got to do is keep our focus. If some guy in Princeton or in Harvard or in Penn or in MIT, they want to say something bad about Israel because of the hate, that's great. Guess what? We're just going to keep moving and advancing. We don't really care about you. And look, if Hamas comes after us, you know what? Maybe once in every 50 years, they'll have 8 hours of success. But guess what's going to happen to you the next 85 days? Okay? You're going to be sitting in your apartment in Beirut, drinking your cup of coffee, thinking that you're all full of success. And one of our F-35s is going to come and drop a 2,000-pound bomb on you, and that's going to be the end of you. And that's what happens when you mess with the state of Israel. We are a thriving success. We do not have to defend ourselves against anybody else. Who cares what they think? We're moving. We're going forward. Join us. Come on board. And if you don't, we're going to run you over.
Buy the book.
Wow, what a refreshing and different perspective on this. That was a fantastic answer. We're going to clip that and make you go viral because that was amazing.
That was amazing.
The world should hear that passion. That was really special. That was really amazing. Let me ask you, Rabbi Pilichowski, when you came to Israel, you said you were an advocate for a two-state solution, and your opinion changed. What is it now? What is the solution?
There's no solution. Sorry to cut you off. There's no solution. It's ridiculous. There's no solution. Who are we going to have a solution with? There's no solution. Saying we had no partner. This is what it is.
Practically, though, what do you do with people, whatever that real number is? Because that same Gaza Ministry of Health are the one who tells the population too. So we don't know what the real number is. Probably much less than the world talks about. Whatever that real number is, that we neither give citizenship in Israel, nor do we allow them to have citizenship in their own country. I'm not talking about Arab Israelis. I'm talking about whatever the real number is.
Gaza?
Take Gaza or take Yehuda v'Shamar.
We just have to protect ourselves. The people in Gaza are their own people. They can decide their own fate. Whatever they want. They want to do this, try this again. I wouldn't suggest it. It's not going to go well for you. But that's their problem, not ours. The world wants to step in and help. Great. Our problem is making sure we are secure. We don't have to.
You say that. I'm by the way, I'm just as right wing, more right wing than you. So I'm not. I'm just.
I think I'm left wing. You should hear some of my neighbors.
You are. I'm just saying for the sake of conversation, devil's advocate. But that's not entirely accurate. What you just described, which is, it's yours. Do what you want. We're just keeping ourselves safe. But we control those borders. We allow goods in or out. We create checkpoints. We don't allow you to have your own military. We don't allow you to have your own economy. Because we don't allow you to have your own shipping and transportation. Meaning, it's more than just do what you want, be gesund. And if you mess with us, we'll destroy you. But all we care about is ourselves and our safety on our side of the fence. You go. It's not entirely accurate. So it's more complicated than that.
I disagree. I think it's very simple. I really do. I strongly disagree. I think that we're going to make sure that we do whatever it takes to keep us safe. And yes, that's going to have adverse effects on our neighbors that want to kill us, because every step that we take to secure ourselves is going to be. And they could change that in an instant. People say, "Oh, you're not being fair to them." I'll be fair to them. Come sit down with us. Let's have a cup of coffee. Sign a couple of pieces of paper. We'll enjoy ourselves. But the minute you decide that, no, you know what, you should die. Okay, so then that's not going to go well for you, because we're strong and we have the strength, and we get to determine what happens to us. Not you, not the world, nobody else.
No, we agree about that. What I'm saying is, right now you've got an educational system that over 70% of the residents of what the world calls the West Bank, right, voted to or in the poll support what Hamas did October 7th. And the whole reason Abbas has not held elections is because he would lose. Hamas would take over there too. So we could say, well, you do your thing. Here's a fence. We're living on our side of it. We'll control the borders for our safety, but be gesund. But that's not so great for us either, because we really, there was a tunnel discovered in Hebron yesterday. We need to change educational systems. We need to, for our own safety and security, for the same reason that you were saying, for our own safety, security, and future, aside from being strength, right? The Iron Dome is the invention of a Yaakov, not a Yisrael. The notion that you can shoot as many rockets as you want is we'll blow it up over the sky, as opposed to we'll go in and take you out. So how do we change an educational system? How do we change a culture? How do we change things?
We can't.
Relocating is Ben Gvir and Smotrich at least are putting out a proposal. Let's relocate. Let's get them out. Let them be someone else's problem. Let them be re-educated and reprogrammed elsewhere. And
we can't control another people. We can't control another people. We can't. They're going to do what they do. We can only do what we can do. We cannot change somebody else. The idea that we can go in and change somebody else is just not unrealistic. We're not going to be able to change their educational system. We're not going to be able to change what their parents tell their children, right? That they are what they are. We have to deal with the reality of what they are, and we have to take their steps. We can't change anybody else.
What would Thomas Friedman, if he were on this call, what would he respond to you? No, because he would fundamentally disagree with you. What would he respond to you?
I don't know. You have to ask him. I don't care. Yeah, I'm saying I guess the other opinions out there, right? The other opinions out there say that if they took a different worldview, which is if you have the power, you have the responsibility for everybody around you. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that that's not true. Yes, we're powerful because we worked hard to get there, right? Nobody gave us this. We worked hard on this. Right, we built this. People, tens of thousands of people died for this. They are continuing to die for this. We built this. So somebody else that says now that you've had success and you built this, so now you have to you're responsible for somebody else. It's just not true. So I can't tell you what Thomas Friedman would say to me. I can tell you what I would say to Thomas Friedman, with all due respect, and I respect your scholarship. But we can only do what we can do. That's it.
Tell us what's behind you on the couch. I know you're a big student of presidential libraries. You're a big patriot in America. It's very interesting because this past weekend, Tucker Carlson went after our friend Ben Shapiro, questioning dual loyalty. He loves Israel more than America. And many think Tucker revealed himself and some anti-Semitic undertones he has towards his whole view, really by going after Ben in that way. So dual loyalty, right? You've always loved Israel. You're also proud patriot, practicing American and prouder than most and aware of American history. I know you've been to maybe not all presidential libraries, most. I don't know.
Everyone.
Been up to everyone, which for me, that might be like a form of a punishment. Like if I did something wrong, someone would make me go do that.
My kids feel that.
Right. What's I hear you are in Mitzpah Yericho in Israel, and on your couch behind you is a blanket and 2 pillows. Did you ever check that off your bucket list, Air Force One?
Air Force, not yet. It's still there. It's funny because I just asked somebody in the administration. I said, by the way, if there's an extra seat next time, I'd love to. That's one of the things I'd love. I'm looking at the book because I'm pretty sure I have a chapter on dual loyalty. I'm almost 100% positive. And I don't believe that there's such a thing as a problem of dual loyalty. America and Israel have a wonderful relationship because we share values. We also have strategic aims that we share. We also share enemies. But most importantly, we share values. We share values with the United States of America. Fundamentally, we believe in the same things. And a strong America is a much stronger Israel, and a much stronger Israel is a much stronger America. So to think that those contradict means that you misunderstand both America and you misunderstand Israel. It's not that you're misunderstanding Jews, right? Or you're misunderstanding Zionists. You're misunderstanding what you yourself stand for. You don't get it. Because if you understood it, right, then you would say, okay, of course there's no dual loyalty. It's like somebody living in New Jersey and somebody living in New York and then turning to each other and being like, no, you really don't love America. You really love your state. Doesn't make any sense.
You know, it's funny. We went to yeshiva in Washington Heights, and a lot of Puerto Ricans there, and they wave a lot of Puerto Rican flags. And I never heard anyone ever accuse them of dual loyalty. How dare you be waving the Puerto Rican flag? You know, that doesn't come up with other people dual loyalty.
I mean, they like a staged a shootout in the Capitol. The bullet holes are still there, and they tried assassinating President Truman. There's a lot of dual loyalty accusations against Puerto Ricans.
Okay, not the current ones in Washington Heights. So tell us about why is that on your couch? Why are you displaying that on your couch in Mitzvah Yericho?
So I'm a fanatic about the White House, and I love everything presidential. I read hundreds of books on it. I love going there, and it's like I don't know why. I have to see a therapist about this, but I say it seriously. I can never figure it out, but I just love everything about the White House. I love. I collect memorabilia. You're only looking at like 2 pillows and a blanket. You saw the rest of the room. It's all White House stuff here. You know, it's like a museum here. So I love everything presidential. It's not as much of a feeling about America as it is just about just this fanaticism I have about reading everything about the White House. So a fascinating building and the presidency is fascinating. I love it.
What's the most interesting thing about the White House that people don't know?
The most fascinating thing about the White House that people don't know. I don't know. That's a good question. I think the idea that it's the people's home, that it's not the president's house. The president gets to live there, but it really belongs to the people, and that there's a sense of the tradition of America and the democracy and the pluralism of the United States of America that imbues itself everywhere in the house, in every room that you can see.
I think I was once with you there for a Hanukkah party. I'm sorry, everybody. Okay, 1 second. And everybody was like lining up to have the best access to the president for his remarks. And if I recall correctly, you were talking to like the chef or the butler or one of
Jack Lew. It was Jack Lew.
No, but you were speaking to one of the staff people there. Not Jack Lew was not the chef or the butler. Let's make sure.
Jack Lew was the chief of staff at the time. I had like a 45-minute guy. I was just talking to him about it. And then and also with the White House usher. The White House usher.
Thank you. That's what you were talking about.
Right.
Jack Lew, if you're listening, I didn't just call you the White House butler or usher.
Right. The usher is not, but the usher, you have to say the usher is the CEO of the White House. There's like 1,400 employees that they're over. It's a huge job. It's not a simple job. She was the CEO of Marriott before she took over as the CEO and during the Obama administration. Though I forget her name, but the White House usher is a very important position in the United States.
Rabbi Brody.
So, did you ever have any political ambitions, either in the United States or now in Israel?
Never.
Why not?
Never, because it's nicer having it destroys your moral being. It's absolutely every politician is, as long as you're not a dictator, which is another problem that destroy you morally. But every single politician at some point is going to be conflicted between what they know is right and what's going to make them popular. That's why Chazal tells us to stay away, because then you have a moral conundrum. Either your political life is over, or you give up on your morals. So I don't want to ever be put in that position. So I would never ever run for office, ever. It's the worst thing that you can do for your soul. I'm speaking as a politician's spouse, but it's like horrific.
Her soul, Baruch Hashem, is doing fantastically.
Yeah, sure.
Let's wind down by going to a little bit of a lighter topic. It's not light because it's important, but it's a little bit lighter. You started a conversation this week online, which a lot of people weighed in on and got excited about. And it wasn't about a two-state solution or relocating Palestinians or our rights to the land. It was about the way that yeshiva and seminary gap year students in Israel asked to come for a Shabbos. So, a pet peeve of yours. Not the first time you started this conversation,
no.
but it's a pet peeve of yours. What are they getting wrong? Should we, maybe high schools, like in senior year, one of the senior seminars should be, by the way, as you prepare for your gap year, it's not only what to pack or here, what buses to take. Here's how you reach out to ask if you could come for Shabbos. Is this a failure of parents, of teachers, of educators? Is this a general problem of the generation? We're not teaching how to be menschlich. What's your experience having a Pilichowski Palace, hosting people regularly? What's the pet peeve about the way that people approach you? And what should we be teaching how to do it better?
So I think first of all, I think it's a parent's job, and I think that not high schools, and I think it's 98% of the people that ask me, to come for Shabbos do so in the right way, respectfully and recognizing what they're asking for. But I think that there are every once in a while, and it really gets me. I have 6 pages of notes of a shiur that I used to give when I taught in yeshivas of week 1. This is what you do when you go to somebody's house. For everything from how to use a toilet brush to don't get a 6 shekel bottle of wine on your way for Shabbos, so you get split among 15 people. But things that you need to know, and these are parents. Parents have to teach their kids their. This is a
Have you ever
parent's job.
published that? Why not publish that? Let's get that out there and let parents make sure.
I actually I didn't know where. I wrote on a whim. My wife is a subscriber to Mishpacha magazine. She's a big fan, so I wrote to them. And then, but I wrote to them right before the war broke out. So they wrote back to me, and then I didn't hear from them again. They wrote back. That was very interesting. So I actually wrote an article about it. I would like to publish it, but just with everything that's going on, it wasn't at the top of my list. But I think that it's incredibly important that people recognize that when you have to teach your kids when they go to somebody's house for Shabbos, or they go just on a Monday. Just this is how you act. This is what you should. It's just simple dark arts, basic things.
What are they getting wrong, and what would be a better way to get it right aside from the toilet brush? Let's say the first text.
The toilet brush.
First what?
The first text, the first contact with you. What are they getting wrong, and how would they get it right?
Hi, my name is Uri. I go to this school. I come from this place. I would love to spend Shabbos with you. Could you have me and I don't know how many friends over? And it's okay if you can't, but we would love to have it. It's just it's being normal. Like, this is not like brain surgery. You don't have to follow a text. We don't need to put to Mishabru on how to be a guest. Like, it's just normal things, not like, hey, yo, heard that you have guests. Want to crash at your place. That's just ridiculous. So
let me ask you, the question everyone wants to know is, how do you get your house listed on Waze? That is.
Yeah. So you can apply, and then you have to have a sufficient amount of people searching for it. The problem in Tzpei, this is like a settlement life, is that we don't have numbers on our houses. It makes no sense. The guy down the block is number 149, and the guy across from me is number 2157. I don't know what. It's not. And the houses around me have no numbers. I don't have a number on my house, so it's like, so everybody knows everybody. So it's like, so you just say, how do I get it? But you can't give directions. Right. And then I have all these buses coming. So the bus would type in my address and then take them up the block, because that's where GPS lands them for some reason. So I applied to Waze for Pilichowski Palace. I thought it'd be funny. And then it took on a life of its own. So.
Rabbi Pilichowski, where can people find you online, and where can they get your new book?
Okay, so the two answers are exactly the same. So they can find me online on Facebook and on Twitter. Facebook, I'm the only Uri Pilichowski in the entire world. So it's easy to find me on Facebook. And on Twitter, I'm Rational Settler, and on Instagram, also Rational Settler. And then Rational Settler, I'm going to say clearly, because if you don't. And then to get the book, I'd appreciate if people came to me. You can get it on Amazon, but Amazon doesn't give the what you really need. Because I make 80 cents on every book. So don't publish your books on Amazon. I shouldn't say that. Yeah, so very nice of them to host my book. But get in touch with me privately, and get you a book.
Well, Mazel Tov and Yasher Koach on the new book. It's an important conversation. This was a fantastic conversation, and your work at Nefesh B'Nefesh. We are biased, of course, but what it has done for Aliyah and making it easier, but doing so much more that people don't know, from like even the fact that your position there, educating about Israel and Zionism, and I know has a whole hall now and is hosting simchas of people who've made Aliyah, and during this war of people who have their wedding canceled elsewhere, doing it at Nefesh. Rabbi Fast, what the Nefesh team are doing is simply out of this world. It's really amazing.
Listen, this will bring tears. We had our Yom Iyun today, which is like, we have this once a year. Rabbi Fast gives a 2-hour speech about all the stuff that we're doing. I broke down in tears, and I'm going to break down in tears again. We flew in 750 mothers of lone soldiers. $700 just to get, and they called it Operation Hug, just so that they could hug their children.
Wow.
They're coming out of the battlefield from Gaza for 3.5 weeks. You haven't heard from your kid. They're not allowed to take their phones in. And then the kid doesn't know that the mother's going to be there. And the kid comes off the battlefield, literal battlefield. He's lost friends. He's seen things that we can't even, in our nightmares, we don't imagine. And their mom's there to give them a hug. Everything else that Nefesh has done, the 85,000 people that made Aliyah, everything else that, the 30,000 kids that were born in Israel through, that we've had from our Olim, everything else that you counted up, all the reasons why Rafas is going to Olam Haba and Tony's going to Olam Haba and all the reasons. But the Operation Hug is just something that's like, wow.
Unbelievable. Well, keep up the great work. We love you. We look forward to seeing you. Rabbi Maso is going to come visit you on his next trip. And just put it on Waze. Easy to find. Pilichowski Palace. Thank you.
You better ask the right way. Now I'm scared how to text you afterwards. Please, if you don't mind, if Rebbe.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching Behind the Bima. Catch us next time for another peek behind the Bima.